Pag nalimut.
Rinig yata.
Kita lang yung likod mo, Kati. Okay lang. Okay lang. Sige.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to. Oops, sorry, there's a feedback. Okay, welcome everybody to our. How many is this? Our fourth webinar here on our ongoing series called Agriculture 2020, bringing in new perspectives and insights into the world of agriculture. My name is Dax Olfindo. Welcome to the stream. For those first time attending with us, welcome, welcome. And today we have a great topic. We have a great speaker with us today. And our host for today's webinar, let me introduce my friend and my colleague, Mr. Jim Cano. Jim,
Hi, Dax. Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see everybody here. And we're seeing a lot of comments already coming in where we have guests and we have viewers coming in from Abra, from Cavite, from Pangasinan. And there's still more coming in. And it's good to see that we have people from different parts of the country tuning in. We'd love to even hear you share about it, share the stream with your friends, tell them about Dream Agri 2020, where we can share and we can discuss about new perspectives and hoping to look into new insights in agriculture, giving you that 2020 vision for agriculture. Oh, we also have Ilocos. So thanks for tuning in. We have, I believe we have people from Manila as well as from Cebu. Batangas, from San Nicola, Batangas. Wow, we have people from everywhere. This one is from Camarines Norte. Good afternoon. We have from Padre Garcia, Batangas. Wow. And we have from Nueva Ecija. This is amazing. Thank you very much for supporting. We hope you can share the stream as well to your friends and your colleagues and your family even who might be interested in learning about agriculture, and we'd love to hear your feedback at the end for this show. So before we jump in, just a reminder for everybody who's listening in right now, the evaluation form or for your e-certificates, this is a quick reminder and we will be reminding you all throughout the webinar. Your e-certificates, you will need to be attending, or you will need to be present rather, all throughout the webinar in this live stream. And as well, the evaluation form will be available up until May 2012 noon, which is tomorrow, Tuesday, Philippine time. So that's, you need, first of all, you need to be present all throughout the webinar. The second is you have enough time to fill out the evaluation form, where the link will be posted later, and you have until tomorrow at 12 noon to fill out that evaluation form. Doing those two things will qualify you to get your e-certificate. Okay, so that's a quick reminder, and I hope that everybody is settled. And let's introduce our speaker for today. All right, so we have a very interesting discussion about what is permaculture and why it matters to sustainable agriculture. We have here in our discussion, our guest for today is Mr. Jabez Flores. Jabez Joshua Flores. Jabez is a graduate of UP Rural High School, a graduate of BA Sociology in UP Las Bañas, University of the Philippines, Las Bañas. He also took his Masters of Environment and Natural Resources Management at the UP Open University. His major in that Masters was major in Upland Resources Management. Currently, he is finishing his PhD in Environmental Science with a cognate in Development Communication at the School of Environmental Science and Management, or SESAM, at UP Las Bañas. Jabez is a DOST SEI graduate scholar. He is also a CIRCA research scholar. He is a board member of the Philippine Permaculture Association. Without further ado, let's turn this discussion now to Mr. Jabez Flores. Jabez, you have the floor. Good afternoon. It's good to have you.
And can you hear me?
Yes, now I can
Is
hear
my
you.
okay? Is my audio okay?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay.
How are you
Okay, good
today?
afternoon. I'm good. I'm excited for this webinar.
This is an interesting discussion.
Yeah,
Right. So, do you want to jump right into it already? Are you ready?
yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. All right, Jabez, take the floor.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy that there's a lot of you who registered for this webinar. Today, we will talk about a topic that's not very familiar to most of us. And I'm really glad that you took interest in permaculture. So the title of my presentation is Permaculture-Why It Matters to Sustainable Agriculture. So today I will share to you my experience and some of my learnings from my field work for the past 2 years in my study entitled Designing Food Security in UP. That's the topic of my dissertation. So before I start, I would like to give acknowledgement to the people and the organizations who supported me all through these years during my PhD, my research team, Permaculture Research PH, all the members there who helped me gather data, the Philippine Permaculture Association for supporting this project, also to my school, UPLB, the UPLB Graduate School, and SESAM, and also the source of my funds, the OST. Thank you very much for letting me pursue a study on this unique topic, and also to CIRCA for giving me also funds to go to fieldwork for this topic. Okay, before I start, I would just like to make something clear. So, where is permaculture in the spectrum of agriculture? So, I got this graphic from a study by Maghirang et al. In 2011. So, you can see here the screen that under all agriculture, or conventional agriculture, we have sustainable kinds of agriculture. So we have written there low external input, sustainable agriculture or LESA. We have green agriculture, conservation farming. Then we have organic. We have certified organic agriculture. And then in the intersections of sustainable agriculture, organic agriculture, and traditional agriculture, we have permaculture. There, if you can see the arrow, along with biodynamic and ecological agriculture. So this is just to give you an idea of where permaculture is in the discussion of agriculture. So later on, we will go into much detail about that because many of you are wondering what's the difference about organic agriculture and permaculture. So for some context, this is where permaculture is. This is the outline of my presentation. So first is I'm going to talk about my permaculture journey, how I discovered permaculture, who shared it to me, where I learned it, and then after sharing those, I will give a brief history of permaculture and some definitions that we will use for the rest of the discussion. And then I will give you some examples of the manifestations of permaculture in the Philippines. And then number four, we will talk about some design models that we can emulate in our own contexts, in our own environments. So after this webinar, I hope that you get some ideas and apply immediately in where you are, in your house, in your school, in your garden, in your towns. Then we will allot much of the time for open forum. Okay, are you guys good? Okay, let's start with my journey. So as mentioned in my introduction, I'm not an agriculturist by profession. Uh, I came from an agricultural school where they taught us agriculture courses, but I took up sociology in college because I wanted to study people and write about them and make documentaries. But my background is not about agriculture. When I graduated college, I became a professional barista. So as you can see in the picture, so I made coffee for a living. I've been a barista for 7 years, almost a decade of being in the industry, in specialty coffee industry, local coffee. And then it was through my profession that I discovered agriculture, not just as a concept, but something that's close to my heart. Because during that time when I was training and learning to become a better barista, I wanted to be involved in the whole process of planting the coffee, to roasting the coffee, to brewing the coffee, then serving the coffee. So uh, here's a picture of me going to a coffee farm. I wanted to know more about what they call the seed to cup philosophy of coffee. So in the whole process, you get involved. So from there, I started asking myself, how do you plant coffee in the first place? Because as a barista, we only have um, limited things that we can do to the coffee to make it taste great. But a lot of it depends on the environment in where the coffee was grown. So that's when I got into organic agriculture, thanks to a certificate program by the UP Open University, which was first offered in 2012. I was part of the first batch of students to take this course. And it was there where my heart for agriculture really blossomed, really developed. My mentor there is Dr. Bisilda Calub and Dr. Edna Matienzo. They're my mentors. And then it was also through this course that one of my classmates, Edu Foronda, shared to me what permaculture is. So during one of our sessions, he told me, "Hey, you watch this video and then tell me what you think, and maybe you can apply it in your own garden." So I watched this video entitled "Permaculture Design" by I forgot Jeff Lawton by Jeff Lawton. I'll send a link later. You can watch the same video. So I watched that video, and then immediately I got hooked on the idea of permaculture. After 2 years, Edu and we went to Cabiocid in Nueva Ecija and took a PDC, or a Permaculture Design Certificate course. It was a week of intensive training, lectures, hands-on, and we learned the basics of permaculture. So this is more like a classroom type setting, but we're in the farm. We lived there for a week. So this was my first real experience in permaculture. And then, as part of our output, I turned a vacant space in our home, in our apartment, and I converted it into a backyard garden with a permaculture design. So it wouldn't be a permaculture design if I didn't get the whole community to pitch in. In this case, the kids, they're the ones who got interested in what I was doing because I had goats, I had chickens, and I had herbs and vegetables, and we were doing land preparation. So they got interested and they helped me. And then I also had a sideline gig. I became an organic farmer at a local farm in Calamba, Laguna. And I worked there for 3 years as a part-time organic farmer. We did raised bed preparations. I did the whole permaculture design of the farm. And then we also train people there, like these students that you can see here. And then I also had some work experience with this group, Good Food Community, with Charlene Tan, my boss over there, and with some farmers in Bauco Mountain Province. So I was their farmer support manager. So what I did was I went around the farms and checked their practices, checked what they grow, and then we also work with these farmers and provide a market for them in the city. So what we're doing, it's called CSA, or Community Shared Agriculture. And then in 2014, we started this youth group called New Wave Farmers. So we recruited students and kids and people our age to come and help us tend us a small patch of land inside the campus, also under Dr. Kalub. And we're thankful for her for letting us experiment on some farming in that piece of land. So we have these farm sessions every now and then. And then finally, currently I formed this group in 2016 or 2015, Permaculture Research PH. It's not a formal group, but it's a research initiative composed of people from the university, students, staff, faculty, and some volunteers also. And we did this permaculture research around the Philippines and gathered as much data as we can. And these people helped me find all of the information that I'm going to present to you today and in my future outputs also. So thanks to them. Okay, personally, I use permaculture as a guiding design framework to integrate my knowledge, my skills, and learnings from other disciplines and knowledge systems. So, with that quick background, I think we are ready to proceed to the next topic. But before anything else, are there any questions, Jim and Dax?
So far, no questions yet. Jabez, go ahead.
No questions. Okay. Hey, Dax, can you fix my monitor
Which one?
sa phone? I can't see the screen.
Okay. Currently, your phone is logged out of the
Okay, okay,
not in backstage. So kindly reconnect your phone if you can.
okay,
Okay, guys. While
okay.
while
Wait lang.
while Jabez is fixing his phone, we would just like to greet some of the audience members. Jim.
Hi everyone. So it's good to see that we have even people coming in from Laguna, from Siargao, and from other areas. This one is from Catanduanes. Hello, from Siargao Islands. Great to see. Wow, Rosario, Batangas, Lawa, Pangasinan, Dagupan City, San Jose del Monte City, Paete, Laguna, very close, and Moncada, Tarlac. Wow, we have lots of people coming in, watching from La Union. Thank you guys for tuning in. Also from
Nice.
Nagcarlan, Laguna, and we have Ilocos Sur as well.
So yeah, thank you,
We're
Jim.
just a reminder. Why if you're wondering why we're bringing this webinar in through the English medium, or speaking in English rather.
Yes.
One reason is we're also expecting that there will be viewers from other countries who might be interested. Hello, Dr. Rina. Hi, Doc Rina from Bae Laguna. And we're speaking in English because we're anticipating viewers from other countries, and also fellow scholars of Circa that Javis might be connected to. So,
Yes.
which is why we're just so that we can cater to a broad range of viewers. Hi, Sarah from Cebu City, La Trinidad Benguet, Mr. Jetro. Hello, wow, from Nueva Ecija. Wow, we are well represented across the country, Javis. You have
Um,
lots of
Nice.
people tuning in.
we're
Okay.
we're we're both live on Facebook and on YouTube. So thank you for tuning in. We just a reminder again with the e-certificates. Please do stay until the end of the webinar to be able to see the post-webinar evaluation form, and we will be making that form available until May 20th at 12 noon on that day. So this is on Wednesday.
Tuesday.
Uh, Today is the 18th, bro.
Oh, sorry, I'm confused. On
Okay.
Wednesday, Wednesday.
So we would
Yes.
like to encourage the people to do ask your questions on the comment section, because we have allotted a lot of time for an open forum after Kuya Jabez's talk, and we hope that we get to see interactions. We Please do post any question that you might have, any curiosity that you might have regarding permaculture, and Kuya Jabez, Jim, and I will try to answer it in the best way that we can. So before we go into Jabez,
Mostly Jabez.
mostly with James, of course. And before we go into the presentation again, we just want to greet some people again. Ma'am
Wow,
Ruby and
from Santa Cruz,
Santa Cruz
Laguna.
Laguna. Hello, Ma'am Ruby. And from Kai Farms. And hello. And again, Santa Cruz Laguna represent.
All right.
representing in this webinar. So, Jabez,
Nice.
it's your time to shine.
Okay.
Take it away.
Thank you, Jim and Dax. Thank you for all the comments. Now we proceed to the webinar proper. Now, first of all, let's answer the question first. What is permaculture? So when we say permaculture, what are we referring to? So permaculture came from the words permanent and agriculture. So that's the original meaning of permaculture. The word was conceptualized by two Australians, Bill Mollison and David Holmgren, back in the 1970s. And then they released a publication called Permaculture-Why. I think that was in 1981 when they released that publication. So permaculture originally focused on perennial agriculture or the perennial crops, and it focused on design, okay, of perennial crops, and also um, the sustainable use of resources. This was conceptualized out of the oil crisis, the global oil crisis that the world was experiencing during that time. So this was a time of heightened environmental activism around the world. But the founders of permaculture, they wanted to do something constructive. So instead of doing something that is destructive, they wanted to come up with a framework that enables one to create and do something positive to the earth. So later on, the permaculture concept evolved to mean permanent and culture. So it's not just referring to agricultural practices, techniques, or methods, but it's now referring to a whole way of life. So from where do we get our water, where do we get our food, our transportation, our energy, our economy. So all of these things is part of our culture. So you might be wondering why the word permanent, because during that time, permanent referred to the word what we use right now, sustainable. So permanent is equal to sustainable. So right now, if we use the term permaculture, it's meant, it's like sustainable agriculture or sustainable culture. Okay, so just to clear those things out, we'll go to one definition from Permaculture One in 1978. So it refers to permaculture as the integrated, evolving system of perennial or self-perpetuating plant and animal species useful to man. Okay, so I've highlighted there evolving system of perennial, evolving system of perennial or self-perpetuating plant and animal species. So unlike conventional agriculture, which focuses on annuals or the kinds of crops that we only harvest once and then we have to plant again, perennials focus on the crops that we can harvest year round for a long time. So when they're designing permaculture systems, they focus on fruit trees, they focus on crops that we can harvest multiple times, so it will be low maintenance. Evolving system because permaculture design is not static. We will learn later that it evolves according to what happens socially, ecologically. So the design evolves. It's not a static design. In 1981, Mollison and Holmgren defined permaculture as consciously designed landscapes which mimic the patterns and relationships found in nature, while yielding an abundance of food, fiber, and energy for the provision of local needs. So I would like to highlight here consciously designed. So what we mean by consciously designed is there's intention. So we designed a place or a space or an area with an intention to mimic the patterns and relations found in nature. So basically, what we are doing is what they call a biomimicry. So we see natural interactions in nature, and then we try to apply those observations in the design of our own landscapes. So this is a bit of a heavy concept because permaculture basically brings together landscape design, agriculture, and ecology. Plus, we have a social component as well, social and component as well. So later on, as we discuss the examples and the models, these definitions will make much more sense. Okay, here's another definition. This is by the Permaculture Research Institute in Australia. Permaculture is the conscious design and maintenance of agriculturally productive systems which have the diversity, stability, and resilience of natural ecosystems. It is the harmonious integration of the landscape with people, providing their food, energy, shelter, and other material and non-material needs in a sustainable way. So that's a long definition and it's said a lot. We will discuss that later also in the examples. But I would like to focus again on conscious design and the words diversity, stability, resilience of natural ecosystems. So the running theme here is we're mimicking nature. In 2002, Holmgren said, permaculture is the use of systems thinking and design principles that provide the organizing framework for implementing the above vision. By above vision, the definitions that I said earlier, that's the vision. So for Holmgren, using this using systems thinking and design principles, permaculture is a framework, an organizing framework of everything that we know to implement what permaculture has promised. Now, when we say permaculture, it has a foundation. The foundation is the three main or core ethics. One is care for the earth, two is care for people, and third is fair share. Well, fair share is actually setting limits to consumption and reproduction and redistributing surplus. It's a very loaded ethic because it expects something from us to limit our consumption and our production and then redistribute surplus. So by surplus, it's not just food, it's knowledge, it's resources, material things. So we're not just talking about the farm in fair share. Care for the earth and care for people, it's more self-explanatory. So this refers to the environment and refers to society. So when designing systems or designing landscapes, we take these three ethics into account always. So if I will design a farm, in the context of a farm, I will ask myself, what benefit will my immediate environment get from this farm? Or what immediate benefit will the community around this farm get from me? And then whatever I produce in this farm, either fruits, vegetables, jobs, or other resources, even energy, how will I be able to share this to the people around me? So this is our guiding ethics for the conscious design of our landscape. So I think from here, from this perspective, permaculture is really unique because it's not just going out there and setting up a farm because you want to provide for your family, food security for your family, or you want to know or you want to learn gardening. But there's also this component of how will I impact the environment? How will I impact the people around me? So as permaculture designers, we always have to think of that, how to stay uh, meaningful and relevant, and also how can we be mindful of our surroundings. Attached to these three ethics are the 12 design principles. So since this is not a permaculture workshop, we'll talk about the applications of permaculture in this webinar. But if you attend a permaculture design course or a workshop, you will discuss these 12 design principles from David Holmgren's book. So here I will just enumerate them one by one. And later on, in the discussion of the models, we will see these in action. So one is observe and interact. Two is catch and store energy. Three is obtain a yield. Like I mentioned earlier, yield is not just limited to vegetables or fruits or meat. It could be anything you have. And then apply self-regulation and feedback. Five is use and value renewable resources and services. Produce no waste. Design from patterns to details. Integrate rather than segregate. Use small and slow solutions. Use and value diversity. use edges, and value the marginal, and creatively use and respond to change. So basically, all permaculture designers use these principles, but if you will see in the literature as you go further into your reading, different teachers have different sets of principles, but basically this is what their principles are saying. So this is like the guiding principles for whatever you're designing, be it a farm, your house, your office, community garden, or whatever space that you have available. So you will take these things into consideration, and you will always um you will always go back to these 12 principles and the three ethics to design the landscapes or the systems that you are trying to apply permaculture to. Okay, there's this study by Ferguson and Lavelle. I found this study in ResearchGate, but it's also in Google Scholar, so you can search it. I will send a link later regarding all the references, scientific references on permaculture. I will share a link on that. But this is the permaculture research sectors framework from Ferguson and Lavelle. Permaculture is such a complex and difficult topic to discuss. You don't know where to start. Will I start? Will I talk about it as a method of agriculture? Will I talk about it as a social movement? Will I talk about it as a way of designing things? So to simplify, the authors simplified the author simplified it into four: practice, design, movement, and worldview. So permaculture is all of these things, but for us researchers to research about these individual topics, it will be easier for us to talk about permaculture. So if you talk about permaculture as a practice, it tackles what are the associated practices in permaculture? Do permaculture practitioners practice organic? Do they practice agroforestry, aquaponics, and all of those things, natural farming? Do they practice that in their system? Do they do composting, vermicomposting, bokashi, and those in the agriculture sector, they know all about these things. So we can talk about permaculture as a practice. We can also talk about permaculture as a designing landscapes and how it impacts the environment. So this is where environmental science and environmental management comes in, because we want to see how permaculture designs impact the immediate ecosystem. So if permaculture claims that it mimics nature, okay, so and it cares for nature or it cares for the earth, having a permaculture design should enhance the ecosystem services that's existing in that area. So that's for design. Movement, permaculture as a movement talks about the people. So a lot of research has been done on this because this is the most obvious, actually. My personal opinion is permaculture research starts with identifying the people who practice it, because so far permaculture has no standards yet compared like to organic agriculture, which has standards. So you can identify which farms are organic or not. But permaculture, we just rely on people declaring their projects as permaculture, and then we take their word for it. So to find where permaculture is happening, we have to identify who are the people practicing this and where they are practicing it. What do these people believe in? Okay, what is their worldview? What are their perspectives? How do they understand permaculture? If they're a Filipino permaculture practitioner, how do they see permaculture? How do they use it? How do they digest the three ethics and the 12 permaculture design principles and manifest on their landscape? So these are the kinds of questions that we ask. And number four is related to movement is worldview. So we focus more on the socio-cultural and the socio-political perspectives of the people. So is permaculture like a guiding philosophy, a framework for sustainability? Some say it's not just about sustainability, it's about regeneration. It's not just about sustaining what's working, but actually regenerating what was lost. So those kinds of things. So if we discuss permaculture in this way, it would be easier for practitioners to identify a problem statement. So that's a bit loaded. So before we before we proceed to the next section, Jim and Dax, do we have some
Uh,
questions?
we'll go through the comments as well if there are any. So
Mm.
there's one question here that's being asked. I think coming from those definitions, can we consider aquaponics as permaculture? What can you say?
Okay, we have to go through the examples now.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe we can tackle this then later. We can
Yeah,
table
yeah,
this question.
yeah.
To Sir Edward Avila, you can look at the next topic where Jabus will talk
Mm.
about examples, and then you can see, will aquaponics fit as an example of permaculture. But
Okay.
before we jump into the examples, I think it's also good for us to take a breather, because that segment of your discussion was very loaded with theory and definition, and I think we might need to give some breathing space also for them to kind of sink in. No? But I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
from looking at the definitions that you mentioned, Jabez, we can see that it's most of it really centers around how it affects environment, people, and the equity, or how do you say this, the that concept of fair share, of
Mm.
having the benefits being spread out to the environment, to the community, to the
Mm.
culture around it. So that
Mm.
those are could you say, pillars of
Yeah,
permaculture.
yeah. Actually, it's not a concept that's alien to us. It's actually it can correspond to the three pillars of sustainability.
Yes, yes,
So
true.
we can better understand that.
And I
But
think
basically, it says the same.
many of our uh, brothers and sisters of different countries, mostly from the indigenous communities, actually practice this kind of
Yes,
living in terms of how they engage with their natural resources in
mm,
their environment. Correct.
yes, yes,
So it's really having that
mm,
care for earth and community
yes.
and fair share. So we have a lot of theory and concept. There might be questions. Please put them on the comment section. We will tackle those questions at the end of the forum. But before we jump into any more questions, I think this is a good enough breathing space. Before we jump again, also, I'd like to remind the viewers that for you to be eligible to get your e-certificates, make sure that you stay all throughout the webinar, and also that you would fill out the evaluation form. You have until May 20, 2020, at 12 noon, which is Wednesday. So you have until that time to fill out the evaluation form. Only those that were able to fill out the evaluation form until that period will be eligible for an e-certificate. So please take note of that. All right, let's jump into the next segment, Jabez,
Mm,
and take it away.
okay.
Share with us what are the examples of permaculture.
Uh, Thank you, Jim. I think this portion of the webinar will help you to formulate more questions later for the open forum, because in the first part we talk about definitions, some concepts. It's a bit heavy, but right now we will see how those definitions, those ethics, and those design principles, when what do you call this, when applied by actual practitioners, how does it manifest in the landscape? So here are some examples that we saw during our trips around the Philippines. So first of all, this is the first permaculture site I saw back in 2014. This is in Cabiao, Nueva Ecija. So as you can see, this is a photo by Jim Cano using his Spark drone. So we really found using drones to be helpful for permaculture research. We can see here that Kabyokid intentionally made a forest corridor around the perimeter of the property. And if you see at the left and the right side, those are conventional rice fields. And in the middle, Kabyokid Foundation, they're also planting rice, but they're also practicing integrated farming, agroforestry, diversified farming, and they're planting organic rice. They have livestock and all of those things in that. So if you search Kabyokid Foundation Inc. on Google Earth, you can see the difference from a satellite image, how a permaculture site or landscape differs from other sites. In our study, we actually did an inventory of the number of species that we saw in this site. So it was a lot, and we only inventoried 1 hectare, but this is a total of 8 to 9 hectares. So in that 1 hectare, I think we found 50 species planted in that small space. So this is one example. This is a good first example because you can immediately see the difference with the surrounding landscapes. This is in Layog Country Farm in Tadyan Mountain Province. So this is a property owned by an Igorot clan, the Layog family. So what's interesting here is they're traditional farmers who learned about permaculture, and it was really nice because they got some validation, learning about permaculture and knowing what they are doing in the first place is actually being recognized by other people. As you can see, if you read about permaculture, permaculture didn't invent anything new. So it got knowledge and methods from different land management traditions, from traditional, you have some from organic, from natural farming, all of these management systems, and they got the best practices. So for the Igorot, for the Layog family who owns this farm, they find it pretty easy implementing permaculture in their own system because, as you can see, they have incorporated so much natural components in their farm. It doesn't look like a farm anymore. It's like a forest. So this is a good example also. Yeah, they also practice multi-story cropping. So from the ground up, they have all of those are edible. This is in Glinoga Organic Farm in Pitogo, Quezon. Um, they also plant rice, but they're also a diversified farming system. They have coconuts, they have fish, they have livestock, they have poultry, and later on we will talk about how they designed this. So the different elements, different components stacked vertically, horizontally, and through time. So whatever season this rainy season or dry season, they have some crops that they can sell or they can eat for themselves. This one of my favorite photos in Dumingag, Zamboanga del Sur. This is a photo of Maleng Organic Farm. It's an organic farm. You can see in this photo, you have so many things going on. You have here aquaculture, this irrigation canal. They raise some fish here. I think this is tilapia, and they have this mini forest. And behind those trees, they have this workshop for making their own organic soaps out of adlay or Job steers. So if you zoom out, I don't have the picture here, but they're also this patch of land is also amidst a conventional rice field. It's a rice agro ecosystem. So from here, it looks like a forest. This is in San Manuel, Isabela, called Lorenzo's Garden and Food Forest Farm. So this 1 hectare patch of land, um, they try to save as much native trees as they can because one of the objectives of this farm is to promote the propagation of native trees and also to protect local biodiversity. So we saw a lot of birds here. If you can see this ridge here, this is full of trees, and the farmer who lives there, he only plants vegetables on a small patch of land. So if his land is a circle, he is surrounded by trees in the perimeter. So he allotted a lot of space for what they call a zone 5 or a wilderness. Later on, we will talk about that. talk about that. Here is in Alpas. The name of the place is Alpas in Tobias Fournier Antique. So this is a bit different because they're beside, they're in the coast. So they have um, a coastal component going on here. So they have a restaurant here which promotes local produce, local products, and also they promote products of local artisans over here. So you can stay there in their farm. They also grow their own food. And then, as you can see, the landscape is really nice. So it's very dense. If you have a ground level view, we can see that the area is really dense with edible species of plants and trees. So it's an edible landscape. This is in Bay Laguna, in one of the houses who practice permaculture there. They have a man-made pond to promote biodiversity also, and they have fish also there. This is a design for a household scale. This is not really a farm. It's more of a garden. So they placed value on putting a water component or a water element in their design because when it rains, yeah, it erodes the soil. So what they did is they created swales so to stop the erosion. Later on, I will send some links on how they created a swale system to control the erosion in this area. And for the question earlier about aquaponics, Aloha House in Puerto Princesa, Palawan, this is a really good example of what if you're not in a rural area and you don't have enough land to do farming and your space is small. So Aloha House, it's originally an orphanage, a DSWD accredited orphanage. The farmer owner Keith Mickelson was inspired by what to feed the orphans. So he got into farming, learned natural farming, organic, and then permaculture design. And then you will see in one of our videos in our YouTube channel, he explained all of these things. He has so many components. I think out of all of the examples, he has the most um, number of edible species in his area, in his farm. So for those practicing aquaponics, you can also implement a permaculture design in your aquaponics system. This is Silang Cavite in Kai Farms. Some of you from Kai Farms watching. So this is a good design of a raised bed. So what they're doing here is they do mulching and they're using what they call a vegetarian compost. Traditionally, we use cow manure for creating compost, but here in Kai Farms in Silang Cavite, what they use for compost is all plant-based. So you can see it's really nice, and they also use a multi-story cropping, as you can see with the trellises that they made. This is an example of a residential permaculture design. So this is even smaller than Aloha House. I think it's only 300 square meters, but they focused more on the technological part of permaculture, is integrating technological components into the design. So you can see here, this house is actually made of clay. It's an earth house, and it is solar powered. It catches rainwater, so it has its own source of water also. It has compost toilets. It has a small forest, a small garden. It has a bamboo workshop. All of those elements stacked in such a small space, functioning and benefiting a lot of people. This is actually the office of the Philippine Permaculture Association. So if you want to visit them, you can go to their office in Marikina. This is another example in Bae Laguna. It's called Tara Farms. So this is a nice photo. This is also from a drone. So you can also see, even though this is located in a rice field, they're able to maintain this patch of forest to integrate biodiversity into the design. So as you noticed, biodiversity and diversity of components in general, not just biotic components, but also technological, cultural components. It's a very prominent design feature in these Filipino permaculture designs. This is kind of different. This is in Karkar, Cebu. It's called the Justice Germany Junior Nature Sanctuary. So it's not really a farm, but it's more of a mangrove conservation site. So what they did is they restored this mangrove area. So actually, these are different, like 5 species of mangrove all over the place. So like half of the property is dedicated to mangrove. The other half, they have a beech forest there, and they plant a few vegetables. So it's not really large scale vegetable production or fruit production, but their focus in this design is educating people about mangroves, how it protects the coastline, how it preserves biodiversity. This is another project from the same people, the Lee family, Edna and Joel. This is one of the permaculture hotels in Cebu. They have three, and they have museums also. So you can see it's not just in in farms, it's not or houses. You can also apply permaculture design in buildings. So in West Gorordo Hotel, not this one on the picture, but in West Gorordo Hotel, also in Cebu City, they have a permaculture library there with all the permaculture related references that you need. So it's a nice component into their design to educate people. Here are some links that you can visit after the webinar to learn more about the examples that I discussed. So this is our YouTube channel. So it's youtube.com/permaculture-research-ph. And we also have our Instagram at permaculture-research-ph. And we also have our website. We regularly update this with articles or our latest findings. It's permaculture-research-ph.blogspot.com. Okay, so do you have any questions before we proceed on how you can actually design your own permaculture landscapes? Jim, Max?
Nice to see those examples around the country. I think I think this is a very nice initiative from you and your team, Jabez, that you went around the country to document the permaculture examples, and also really to for other Filipinos also to learn more about what permaculture is, no? And I think this is the space where, if we have questions looking at what permaculture is, I think you answered it very clearly with those examples. So I hope, Sir Edward Avila, your question regarding aquaponics as is it considered as a permaculture system? I think it somehow gives you an answer already based on the presentation in that specific segment. Dax, do we have any questions that pop out related to the examples that have been raised?
Not
I
not as much in the way of questions, pero may mga reactions
Yeah,
tayo. We have some reactions from
yeah, I saw that one as well from
Lee.
no, so people are not aware that there are lots of permaculture nearby. So we have a lot in Bae.
So, and also you share our page, share the link to Cabio Kids Facebook page. So where is this, Jabez, again? Where is this in Nueva Ecija?
In Cabiao, Nueva Ecija.
Cabiao. Okay, Cabiao, Nueva Ecija. Okay. So I think we want to encourage everybody who's on the stream or who's on the webinar to kindly ask questions regarding the topic. Please take note of the interesting quotes or bits of knowledge and information that you find during Jabez's presentation, and please do leave them on the comments so that we might be able to get to them and be able to address your questions, especially regarding permaculture. But before we go ahead, I would just like to promote some of our upcoming shows or streams here on on our on our channel here. So on Thursday night, Jim, can you do this one?
Yeah, sure. So this is actually a web discussion in partnership with YPARD Philippines. where we want to bring into the discussion of what would the youth in agriculture dynamics look like after COVID-19. So we've been talking about new normal a lot of times, and it's been talked about around the world, which is the world is now shifting to a new normal. So the question really is, how would youth in agriculture dynamics look like post COVID-19? In this topic, we have our friends from YPART Global. We have the global director, we have the chair of the steering committee, Yemi and Marina, respectively. We also have our friend Alpha Senon, who is from Trinidad and Tobago, from the Caribbean area. He is one of the most dynamic people I've met in terms of advocating for agriculture to young people, and he developed a comics called AgriMan, and they also recently developed the sister, which is photosynthesis. So we would love to have you during that discussion on the 21st of May. This is 9 p.m. Philippine time, just so we could also accommodate our speakers and also viewers from around the world. So this is 9 p.m. Mark your calendars. This is in partnership with YPART Philippines and YPART Global, as well as YFarm by Alpha.
Thank you, Jim. And we would also like to plug our show on Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. We will be talking to our public servants in the field of agriculture dito sa ating katabing bayan or katabing lalawigan, I'm sorry, dito sa Batangas, mga lingkod bayan sa agrikultura, as part of our new show called Agricaba. It is a joint effort from Dream Agritech and YPART Philippines. So please do tune in. I would like to announce now that we will be doing a giveaway on this episode. We will be giving away 2 cell phone skins from Covered PH. So please do tune in on that episode on how you can win those premium and customized, premium and customized cell phone skins from Covered PH. So please do tune in on that one. And also, we are conducting a survey on Dream Agritech's page regarding this webinar that we plan on doing, Principles of Farm Planning. So please do fill out this form if you are interested in joining this webinar. This will be a paid webinar, and we are looking to get your feedback on whether you would be willing to join this one. And we are in the process of finalizing the details on this one, and we hope that you could join us, as this is one of our core services in Dream Agritech, and we are wanting to share our knowledge to you and help you plan out for your own dream farm. So, Jabez and Jim, are we good to continue on the next section of the presentation?
Yes.
Again, once again, we'd like to remind everybody to please leave your questions on the comment section, either here on Facebook or on YouTube, which we are also simulcasting on. Please do leave those questions and so that we can see them. All right. So we will be discussing all of these questions during the open forum, which we have allotted time for. All right.
Yes.
So we go back to Jabez.
Okay, thank you, Dax and Jim. So after discussing the definitions and then a few examples of permaculture, actually, I'm not surprised also that a lot of us didn't know that there are actually permaculture sites in here in the Philippines. We really have to find them, and then it is one of our goals as a research initiative to find these people because what they're doing needs to be heard. We need to see it, and then also there's still a long way to go before we truly understand how these ethics, how these design principles actually manifest on the landscape. So, as a good takeaway, I'm going to present some design models to you that which you can use even after this webinar in your respective projects. So this is based on the things that we have seen through the years and the places that we visited. So before anything else, we'll just go through some quotes from Bill Mollison. So Bill Mollison said, "Permaculture design is a system of assembling conceptual, material, and strategic components in a pattern which functions to benefit life in all its forms." So this quote describes that permaculture is about components. It's not just the physical ones, the material ones, but also concepts and strategies. So, given that we have learned so many things throughout our life as a student, as a professional, so we have to make sense of these things and how we can use these things to actually design something. Another one is every component of a design should function in many ways, and every essential function should be supported by many components. This is one of my favorite quotes because it directly tells you what you need to do. So if you're gonna add a component into your design, either a farm or your house, it should not be standalone. It should not be isolated. It should function in many ways. It should be multifunctional. And then that component should be supported by other components as well. And it does not just apply in your own farm or in your own home. If we view your farm as one component in the community, your farm should function also in many ways. So it can provide education, it could provide experience, it could provide food, it could provide biodiversity, ecosystem services, and all of those things. So keep this in mind as we go through the models that I will present to you. So this is one of the uh, constant things that we observed in our field work. So in Permaculture, a designer's manual by Bill Mollison, he talked about zoning. So we noticed that practitioners here in the Philippines observed this zoning pattern. So basically, I just summarized each zone corresponding to one word. So in zone zero, this is where you usually live. Okay, so it's at the it's where most of the activity is happening. So that's why it's zone zero. Zone one is usually the garden. Zone two, where your livestock or your animals are. Three is where your rice fields are or your corn. Four, your fruit trees. And this is interesting. Zone five is allotted for your what they call wilderness. It's a space that you just allow to grow. And the sizes of these zones is really relative. So there's really no required size for each or required area for each of these zones. And actually the shapes of zones, they change from one place to the other. So why do these practitioners do these zone patterns? The lower the zone number, the more activity that you do. So that's why in zone 5, allotted full wilderness, actually you don't have to go there. You just go there every now and then just to appreciate nature. Like what we saw in Kabioke, they have a forest corridor around the perimeter of the area. So we just let nature thrive in those areas. If you're in a smaller place, it could be a small patch of land that you just let grow. You let the weeds and the trees grow out. So this is one. So we have a map here. This is in Quezon. So our mapping expert, he plotted the components that we inventoried and put them inside the zones that we identified. If you can see, there's a zone 5. Around this property is also a mangrove forest. So it's no longer part of their property, but they consider it as part of the design of their landscape. So what they did is they preserve that area and they protect it because it brings in protection from the storm. It brings in biodiversity and food also for the wildlife that's in there. So here's another example. All of the components in those zones are interrelated. They're working with one another. So there's no standalone component. So this is an example in Bae. So we did in the research what we call the Permaculture Landscape Network Model or the PLN6 model. So we simplified the types of components that are inside a permaculture site or permaculture design. So these components are a biotic component. It refers to bodies of water or physical land features like mountains, hills, ridges. These are the non-living components of your design. And then we have biotic components, the biological or the living components like you, the farmer, the family living there, the wildlife, the crops that you grow, the forest, those things. And we also have the man-made structural components. These are the built-up areas like your house, the buildings, and basically these are dwelling places where you live. We also have the socioeconomic component. These are also structures, but these structures, this is where your businesses are. This is your enterprise. It generates income. We have the technological component, and this refers to installations, technologies, like for example, solar panels, irrigation, those kinds of things. And lastly, we have the cultural component, which are structures or places of cultural significance. So in some designs that we saw, we've seen like a grotto, we have stations of the cross, we have a chapel, those kinds of things. You have a heritage site or a protected area. So those kinds of things. So basically, we group the kinds of components that we saw in these permaculture designs. If you see the diagram, I don't know if you can see this clearly, but we connected these components using only three things: proximity, use, and function. So use refers to if one component uses the other component to do something. Function refers to if one component needs one component to function as a system, as a small system, and proximity if they are beside each other. So all of these things in red, we put some examples there. So for example, if we connect a biotic component to a cultural component, so the function is protected species. So for example, you have like for example tarsier. You're trying to protect tarsier, and it is of great cultural significance to that area. So that's we consider that a function. Actually, we can forward this image later on because these relationships these will change also, and this will be a good guiding framework when you design permaculture landscapes because every component should make sense. Okay, so I'll proceed to the next. This is a simple vegetable garden based permaculture design. So most of us are in our homes right now, and if you want to practice permaculture in our homes, you could do this very simple design. So this is centered around the garden as the main component. So what does your garden do? It produces food, and then you can give food to your neighbors, and your family will benefit from the food. Okay, and I put something that you can use your house for saving rainwater, turn it into a rainwater collector, and provide water for your garden. And the scraps that you get from your food, you can add it to your compost bin, and all of those things you can save water, eat healthy, reduce waste, be creative, earn income, and make friends, and produce food at the same time using your house as the main component. So this is systems thinking or design thinking. It's something that's available also in other disciplines, especially environmental science, engineering, architecture. But permaculture, it brought this kind of thinking to people like us who don't have background in agriculture or let's say botany or forestry. So it really laymanizes ecology for us. So there's this article that he called permaculture as a feral ecology. It's a kind of ecology that got out of academic discussion and into the hands of the masses. So how we understand ecology, it becomes um, our own knowledge, our own experience, and using permaculture as a framework to process those things, to process our observations, you can turn it into something like this, into this simple system. Another one, if you want to design in a social permaculture context, you should be able to reach out to other people as well. So you should not be confused. Permaculture is not about isolating yourselves and being self sustaining and not caring about the people around you. Actually, as a permaculture practitioner, you should make an effort to reach out to people and build community and make your discoveries heard And your knowledge, your newfound knowledge, you share it either to fellow farmers, to policymakers, to the local community. We have social media now. You can post it. You can see it's happening right now. A lot of people are experimenting on farming and gardening, and they're posting it on social media. And the same time, other people are learning from their experiences. And then we also share some of our findings to the academe, scientists, because the knowledge that permaculture practitioners are generating, it's a lot. So it's really interesting if we can start research on this topic immediately. Okay, so here's a general design model for permaculture in the Philippines. So if you remember the three ethics and the 12 design principles that I shared earlier in the webinar, this is actually the application of those design principles. So in color white text, these are some design goals. In yellow text, we have the design components, and in teal or blue text are the design outputs. So how do you know if you are practicing permaculture? Since there are no standards yet developed to identify what permaculture is, the best that we can do is follow the ethics and the design principles that are made available to us. And if we follow those ethics and principles, this is a general output that we can do. Okay, let's go through this one by one. So in my design, there are three goals that I put here. It's resilience for the family at the bottom right, where you can see the silhouette of the family. Resilience and food security with the banana icon. And on the top center is biodiversity. So you can start with the design that with the goal of having a resilient household, a food secure household, and a biodiverse household. So by biodiverse, you can start with your garden, observe the birds, observe the insects there, how they interact. So those are three simple goals that you could do. And also we have, in addition to that, is the zoning plan. So no matter how small your space is, you can follow the zones, the zone plan zone 0 to 5 in any space. So that's also part of the design goal. Now, what are the components that you can integrate into your design? I listed some here. We have organic agriculture. You can grow your food organically. Actually, all of the places that you went to, they do organic methods. It's also their lifestyle, organic. Okay, they have food forests in a place where it's like an orchard, but it's more diverse. It's not just trees. You have root crops, you have vines, so it's a really dense forest full of edible crops. So it's also related to what they call edible landscaping, which is very popular right now. Another important component is rainwater harvesting. Actually, a lot of us can do this by placing buckets under our roof, or if you have a big drum, a big blue drum, you can attach it to your gutter in your roof and collect rainwater there. Now, if you can't drink it, you can just use it to water your garden. And then you have also renewable energy component. So it's not just solar also, but we have wind also. We have water systems there. And then we have recycling and upcycling facilities. We have renewable materials such as wood. Here in my home, I have a small house. I have a small patch of bamboo here, which I use to make fences. So that's a renewable materials component. And then you have some endemic and indigenous species there also. And for the design outputs, out of these components that you put in your design, what does the community get out from it? So obviously crops and products, you can give it to your community, you can sell it. And also what's important and what we've observed in not most, I think all of the sites that we went to is their passion for sharing their knowledge of permaculture. Not just permaculture, but agriculture in general. Sharing their experiences, training others. Either you do it for a fee or you do it for free. So it's up to you what system that you would do it. And finally, another design output is record keeping. Out of all the things that you do in your design, you keep records of this so you can monitor your progress. And when if researchers visit your site, we can actually measure if you are benefiting the environment, if their community is benefiting from your design. So this will be record keeping is a good practice. I think Dax talked about this during the first webinar. Also in permaculture, this is very important. So I'll make this design model available soon. This is not reviewed, by the way. So these are just some examples that we have consolidated. Okay.
Jabez,
Yes, sir.
before we go ahead,
Yes, sir.
can you kindly click on the bar below that says streamyard.com is sharing screen? Can you click hide so that they can see more of
Oh,
your presentation, please?
oh, here.
Yeah, there
Okay.
you go. There you go. A lot of
There.
there have been comments that they can't see the full
Okay.
presentation.
So there
All
at
right.
the bottom, you can see resilience and record keeping.
Okay.
So
So
this is a very simplified design, but it's basically some of the components that we need to include to follow all of the principles that I've stated earlier.
all right.
Yeah.
So okay,
Okay. Proceed.
Jim, do we proceed? Okay, so we'll
I,
go on ahead with Kuya Jabez's presentation, and then I think the forum is about to take place. Am I right,
yes.
Kuya? Okay,
Yes.
so we'll
Do
just
you still
let
have
Kuya
other
Jabez start.
slides for design models?
I have some final words before the forum.
All right.
Okay, maybe we
Okay.
can finish that and then we jump into the forum.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Okay. Before the forum, here are just some final words. So permaculture matters to sustainable agriculture because it is inclusive. It invites everyone to participate in food production, not just farmers or agriculturists, but everyone, even normal people like you and me. It invites everyone to participate in the sustainability conversation. It promotes an ecological perspective, a sustainable lifestyle, and social justice. Each of these representing the three ethics. It develops systems and design thinking in people, and it integrates your skills, talents, creativity with new and traditional knowledge. And it also reminds us of our culture and values. What kind of values does a certain framework like permaculture give give you or develop in you? So for me, that's more important. So if you have this permaculture mindset or this permaculture philosophy, so what values does it develop in you? Does it make you mindful of your food consumption? Does it motivate you to plant your own food? Does it inspire you to work with nature? Okay, thank you. We proceed to the open forum.
All right. Thank you, Jabez, for that. But
Yeah,
before we proceed to the open forum, we will let you get a drink of water first. And
hey,
Jim has something to plug. Jim, hang on. Bro, can you unmute your mic, please? There you
Okay.
go.
So, all right. On May 21, YPARD Philippines, in partnership with Dream Agritech, is bringing to you guys this web discussion, uh, possible youth in agriculture dynamics post COVID-19. So, we want to talk about how the dynamics of engaging young people for agriculture would look like or could look like after COVID-19. What would be the new normal in terms how do we attract, how do we recruit, how do we engage young people in agriculture, given that COVID-19 has changed the landscape of agri-food systems around the world. So we have our guests from around the world. We have Yemi, who is the global director of Whitepard, who's based now in Rome, Italy. We have Marina, who is the chair of the Whitepard steering committee, who's based in France. And we have Alpha Senon, who is the founder and CEO of Y Farm, which stands for We Help You Youth Farm, which is why it's called Y Farm. And he's based in Trinidad, Tobago, from the Caribbean islands. So we'd love to have you with us at the web discussion on May 21st. This is the link to the web discussion. That's the link to the event. You
Event.
can subscribe to it so that you can see the link where discussion will be streamed from.
Okay, thank you for that. And again,
This
once again,
is
okay,
this
come
is
in.
at 9 p.m. Sorry, this is 9 p.m. Philippine time, just for the sake of clarity.
Okay, thanks, Jim. And once again, we would like to remind you that we have an upcoming show on Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Mga lingkod bayan sa agrikultura. We will be talking from two public servants from Batangas, and we will be discussing their lives, their stories, and their experiences in the field of agriculture. So that will be on Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. I would like to also remind the audience that we will be doing a cell phone skin giveaway courtesy of Covered PH. So, and lastly, we would like to also ask you to partake on our survey. If you would like to participate on our webinar on one of our core services, which is farm planning, we would like you to participate on our survey. Please do take note of the URL dreamagritech.com/farm-planning-webinar. Once again, dreamagritech.com/farm-planning-webinar. And of course, we would like to also remind you that um, we will
Our Easter
be
tea.
we will be um, awaiting your evaluation forms up until May 20, 2020, 12 noon. The link will be posted right after the open forum, so please do stay for that. Okay, so do we proceed now to the questions, guys? Are we ready?
Are you okay, Jabez?
Jabez,
Yes,
have you gotten a drink of water? Are you
yes,
ready
game.
to go? Before
Are
we
you
proceed,
hydrated?
are you hydrated? Your throat
Yes.
ready? Okay, so before we proceed, we would just like to give a shout out to the continuing education program from UPLB. They are watching us via our YouTube stream.
I
And
think that's from UPOU.
oh,
Is it
UPOU,
from
sorry.
UPOU?
Okay. Is it you from UPOU?
Yes.
Okay.
FMDS is from, yeah, I think it's yeah, UPOU FMDS.
All
Faculty
right.
Management.
Okay.
Okay, so
So
let's jump into the questions
let's
from the
jump in.
audience.
Yes. First question, of course. I'm a little bit biased. This is from my mom. What would be an ideal size of land to be able to apply permaculture?
All right.
Okay, that's a good question. Actually, from the examples, you can see that any size will do. But personally, it's a size that you can manage. So for permaculture, if you go into a course, unlike other management systems, the first question that your teacher will ask you is, what do you see and what can you do with what you see? So you don't have to buy anything. So you just have to use the available resources that's there. So I'm telling you, permaculture is really a design exercise. It's a design challenge. So unlike other systems that we know that requires us to buy these things to start these things, first question that the teacher will tell you is go outside and see what you have and design from there. Okay, so so if you have a house and you have one pot of soil, what can you grow there? You start permaculture by growing a tomato, so that's a good starting point. The size doesn't matter. You can practice permaculture on your office table.
Oh,
So yeah.
okay. So
So
from
I
my
think related to that question,
Mm.
can I jump in on that one,
Yeah.
Dax?
okay, go ahead, go
Yeah.
ahead.
My question related to that is that you can't really say there's a minimum requirement of space to practice
No.
permaculture, right?
Yeah.
But say for example, if I'm wanting to practice permaculture and I can't really apply all 5 zones,
That's
with
okay.
can I still be called a permaculture practitioner
Yeah. Yeah.
even without practicing all five
Because
zones? Yeah.
we have to remember the zoning is to maximize our energy. So the zoning design is helps you avoid going to places that you don't have to go to every day.
Oh,
So we just have to conserve our energy. So
Mm-hmm.
if you want to use every day, you put it near you. So for example, if here I'm sitting in my office, my zone 1 is my office table. My zone 2 is my library shelves. And my zone 5 is outside my house. So we can scale up or scale down the zones according to our objectives and the purpose of our use.
Okay,
Okay.
good to know.
So
Yes.
another question from the audience from Mirna Flores. How can
Ma'am.
hello, Tita.
Yeah.
So how can permaculture encourage? So we're talking farm moms now. So how can permaculture encourage farmers when it comes to output and income generation? Will it bring in greater income come harvest time?
Yeah, theoretically it should be because you're designing a system that's based on perennial crops. So it should be more low maintenance compared to the farms that rely on their income with a heavy percentage of crops on annual. So, for example, if 80% of your farm is dependent on lettuce or pechay sales, that would be really hard. Okay, but if you have a farm that's designed for perennials, has less maintenance, and over time you will get more income. Another answer to that question is that as your farm diversifies, as the components of your farm diversifies, the outputs of your farms also diversify. So it's not just the crops that you get income from. You can use it for agritourism. You can use it as a farmer's field school. You can have a retail store there to sell value-added products. So, for example, pickled vegetables or preserves, jams like that. So, as your farm diversifies, you also as a person, your skills also diversify.
Mhm.
So, I think it's a design for oneself to be resilient and sustainable. It's not just your farm; it's also you. So that's why in our analysis of farms, the farmer or the person who's designing the farm is actually a component of the farm. Because if you remove yourself in the design, you will see the system collapse. So if you design your farm, there should be someone that will support the functions that you hold together. So if you leave or if you die or you go, I don't know where, someone else will carry out those functions. Because you know why that is important? Because some farms, if the designer goes away, the whole system collapses. Okay, so some components might live on. This is nature. So your zone 5, of course, will live on. But how about the community? What will they get out of your farm? Your family, what will they get out of the farm? So you have to take into consideration also yourself as part of the design. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Jabez,
Great.
for that
Uh,
answer.
may I add also one important thing? I
Yes,
want
go
to
ahead.
I want to be a critic also of permaculture because you've been listening all throughout the webinar. You may observe that permaculture is very one knowledge intensive and two experience intensive.
Hang on.
So
Jabez, hang
Sorry.
yeah,
on. We're trying to connect you via your other device. So,
okay.
uh, okay. So we'll see if
Hi.
the connection is better there.
Hello. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead. We'll
Yeah.
remove your other connection. Okay, so that
Okay. Okay.
your bandwidth will be preserved. Okay.
Okay. I was saying that permaculture is a knowledge intensive and experience intensive. I think that's the disadvantage of that.
Oh. Okay. Hang on. Okay, guys. So
Hello.
please do bear with us.
Hello.
Can you hear us, Jabez? Hello, Jib. Oh, can you hear us? Can you hear us?
Hello.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear us?
He can't hear us right now. So we'll just try to reconnect with Jabez here. Uh,
Hello.
please do hang on. Okay, so he really can't hear
Mag-switch
us.
ako sa laptop.
Yes, he's connected again through the laptop. Okay, so but while Jabez is reconnecting, we're sorry for that. We would just like to greet some of the
Mag-switch ako
people.
sa laptop.
Jim, can you signal him to go switch thumbs up or something? Give him a indication.
Cut
Okay.
yung cell phone. So let's cut the cell phone and go back to the laptop.
Okay. Wait. Let's try to get
Turn on your audio.
Okay.
Turn on your audio from the phone.
Uh,
Okay, can you hear us
Can you
now?
okay,
hear
yeah.
us now?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, good,
great.
good.
Hello.
Okay. So the miracles of live streaming. Okay, so now we would like to continue with the open forum, and we have a series of great questions from Reeve Padua Hernandez. I would like to get on to the first one. Is permaculture more accepting? I'm sorry, of new crop varieties. Her example is GMOs.
Oh, that's a good question, no? So most of the permaculture practitioners are really against that. I think I haven't met a permaculture practitioner that's accepting
Okay.
of that technology. But personally, I have my stand on that. I want to share this also. So as a scientist, no, you have to really need to be objective about these things. So for me, I really don't shun technology. I believe that a GMO is a necessary technology. But what's happening right now is, personally, I don't want that kind of technology for people to be dependent on it, because there's been lots of debates on what's healthier, what's safe for the environment, organic or GMO. Actually, that debate will never end, because I think we will never get sufficient evidence on those kinds of things. And if nutritionally it's a stalemate, there's one thing that I think will have a definitive answer, is like the question I posed at the end of my webinar is, what kind of values will it develop in you? If you support this kind of cropping system, what kind of values will it develop on you? Is it one of a consumer? You just wait for farmers to produce food for you? Or are you a designer who designs ecosystems? You work with ecosystems. What values does it produce in you? And going back to my previous point, that I see GMO as a necessary technology, because there will come a time that I think because of our own folly, a lot of our food systems will fail, and technology like GMO would be helpful. So I call this the Pancit Canton paradox. See, Pancit Canton, it's not good food. But what happens right now, because it's easy to prepare, easy to produce, and it's cheap, everyone is eating it. But the main purpose of having instant food in the first place is that when all systems fail, we will have a source of food. So I'm not really totally shunning all instant food, because there will come a time, like right now, we're dependent on sardines, okay, and noodles. So those kinds of technologies are for moments like this. So this will happen. So I don't think this conversation, this conflict between the GMO camp and the organic camp is really helping us. And it's really against, I think, it's not being constructive. Permaculture is more focused on building things and designing things. And we don't focus our energies on destroying things. So if we have these things, if we have these research facilities that researching on these things, we reach out to them, we see them, we share our experiences. That's why we do permaculture research in the first place. We're proving to people that a system like this, a philosophy like this can work. So personally, as a researcher, as a scientist, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm showing the world what people are doing quietly. Well, we don't have to be quiet all the time. We have to show people what we are doing. So as a research team, we're showing the world what these practitioners are doing, and they're doing a lot. And people are getting surprised that there's actually permaculture happening in the Philippines, and it's been happening for a long time, but it's just now that we're getting interested in this topic. So that's my stand on GMO. So to my friends who don't know that, now you know. I think now you know. We have
I want to jump into
this and
that
that.
point that you're raising, Jabez.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
So you're saying that it's possible that we can open our be open-minded to some degree, and how we can integrate maybe GMO varieties into the practice of permaculture. Maybe it's really more of how we use those varieties in such a way that it does not destroy environment.
Mhm.
Whereas in monoculture systems, it requires a whole clearing of a huge
Mhm.
parcel of land and just dedicating the area to one specific crop. Whereas if you integrate maybe GMO varieties into a permaculture system, you still remain in a diversified or integrated farming system somehow. Is that what you're trying
But
to get at?
no, no, but I have a question for that also. Why do you need the GMO variety in the first place, right?
Maybe for
What?
resilience, salt
Why?
tolerance, whatsoever. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Why do you need the variety in the first place? Is your system so desperate it needs something like that? If you can live off of the kind of food that you have right now and it's still working, why do you have to be as desperate as you are to resort to a technology like that? So I think I'm
Mm.
going to use one if all my chips are down. if
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
really
yeah.
nothing, if there's really nothing that I can do, I'm happy that there's that a technology like that exists. If everything is really down and I have no choice, I'm glad that scientists are developing that kind of technology. But as a designer, the question is, why do you need it? It's the same sentiment as why do you need to make fermented plant juice or use vermicast or African nightcrawler? Does your system need it, or because someone else told you to use it?
Oh,
For like,
that's a
right?
great insight. That's a great insight. Actually,
So it
it's
boils down to your personal values as or
Yes,
what
as a designer.
principles and values as
yes.
a designer.
Yes.
That's why in my parting words after the webinar, it's about your values, how you understand, how do you see yourself in the whole system, the whole scheme of things.
Mm.
So
Yes.
that's why permaculture, a framework like permaculture, gives you a set of values to cling on to and integrate yourself into the environment. So if I don't feel a need to use these varieties or even seeds, then I won't use it. So it's really encouraging people to think, because these kinds of questions, these are not being talked about, because we depend on technologies a lot. We're
Mm.
hungry for new tech, so we don't have the time to go out and experience how nature really works. So I think that main contribution of permaculture, it reconnects you to the soil, it reconnects you to the environment.
All right. Thanks for
Okay.
the
Another
insight, Jim.
question.
Go
Yeah,
ahead, Jim.
thanks for that, Jay. That's very interesting.
Yeah,
Another
yeah.
question, Dax, maybe if you could find that, it's from Anwar Al Alabado. It's on, is permaculture about mimicking the local system where they are suited, like using only local
Mm.
plants and trees as the flora, or can you modify it like a horticulture or collection garden?
Oh, nice. That's a good question. So, actually, yeah, there's a lot of designs where permaculture integrates not just no endemic or indigenous species. Now, I want to know what the effect will that be on the local ecosystem. That's why on my research, I particularly said we're studying permaculture in the Philippines, because permaculture just gave us a set of principles and ethics. Then how the people will interpret it and apply it in their landscape, now that will vary. That's why when you do
Mm.
a study on permaculture, be specific in what place, what's the social and ecological context of your practice. Okay, so that question, I'm really interested in that, because in permaculture, there are a lot of people integrating species from different areas, not just endemic or indigenous. But I would like to see how things will play out if these different species are in one place. Because for sure, there is an effect, but that's what research is for, because we want to see the interactions of these things. Well, for example, if you introduce one species, for example, of a crop, and it becomes invasive, so that's a
Mm.
problem. So that's where your experience comes in. So if that happens and it takes over the ecosystem, you stop planting that. So that's why I said permaculture is really knowledge and experience intensive. So permaculture needs a lot of help from other disciplines. a lot of help, because when people learn about permaculture, they just grab it and run away with it and experience it for themselves. So I think a lot of permaculture practitioners need to be guided by published research and what other people are doing from other disciplines as well.
Mm.
Thank you, Jabez, for that.
Yeah.
Before we go on, I have a two-part question here
Okay.
from two different people. So this is just a compare and contrast situation or an answer maybe. So what's the difference between permaculture and agroforestry? And
Okay.
what's the difference between organic agriculture and permaculture? So maybe
Very good.
maybe you tackle organic. What's the difference between permaculture and organic? And then
Okay.
proceed to what's the difference between permaculture and agroforestry.
Okay, for organic, as you can see in the general design model, permaculture practitioners, all of them, they apply organic systems into their permaculture systems. So if you try to Google permaculture, I'll do it right now. If you try to Google permaculture, I will tell you what it says. Because when you hear about the concept, you Google it first. Permaculture is a set of design principles. It's a set of design principles. So what we tackled here in this webinar, when you apply those design principles, those ethics, how will that manifest in your landscape? The manifestation can be organic agriculture. The manifestation could be organic agriculture and agroforestry, or all of these things that you've learned online or in school. The challenge for permaculture is integrating all of those things in a single design. It's not, I have an organic agriculture project, I have an agroforestry project, and I have this project. How are all these things intertwined? Okay, how do you make sense of all of these things? So let's not look at permaculture as like, I think most literature make this mistake. Let's not cluster it with like
Mutually
organic.
exclusive.
Yeah. It's more like
Mm.
I can be a lot of our respondents in our study, they claim to be organic farmers. They call themselves organic farmers, but here it's permaculture. You understand? It's permaculture. The way they see things, it's permaculture. It's design, it's systems, it's ecological, and it's social. So they care for the earth and for the people. So permaculture is more here and here. So
Mm-hmm.
it can have a lot of manifestations. In the general design model that I showed, one component is organic agriculture. So it's there. So I think that's it. And what's really difficult with permaculture is that you really can't see it until people tell you that it is permaculture. You get it? That's really confusing, because unless you ask the person, permaculture ba yan? And then he or she starts talking about it, because in his head, everything makes sense. But you, as a
Mm-hmm.
casual observer, you don't understand it. So how do you identify what is permaculture? Because these practitioners, they see the world with a different lens, and that lens is permaculture.
So in a way, you could
Yeah.
somehow say permaculture is synonymous to systems thinking to some
Yeah.
degree. No? It's
Yeah,
more of how
it
you
is.
integrate the different practices and different ways of practicing agriculture. So, say for
Mm-mm.
example, you have a system where you have organic agriculture in one
Yeah.
area that's working closely in an agroforestry
Mm.
context, where you have a sloping area. There's an interaction of the crops and trees.
Yeah.
It's very systems thinking. The design
So
framework in a
yeah.
systems manner.
Yeah. So for example, you're a farmer and you have an existing organic agriculture farm. You go through the
Mm-hmm.
permaculture design principles and ethics and ask yourself, am I meeting these things in my farm? Okay. Am I caring for the earth? Am I caring for the environment? And all of the design principles, are you meeting those things? Can you check off those things in your design? So it's basically that's it. And what's interesting is that different people have different interpretations. So the manifestations are also different. The constant thing that we've seen through all the examples that I've given you is diversity. You can
Mm-hmm.
see these farms, they don't look like farms. They look like actual forests.
Forest,
Okay.
yeah.
Yes. And in our study, we found out that the ecological perspective is the perspective prevailing here. Okay, so when people who go into permaculture, working with nature is how they understand it. That's why the manifestation is forest. Okay, so that's it.
Okay. So thank you for that, Jabez. We are learning a lot about
Yes.
permaculture. And here is one question coming from all the way from Australia. Could you please
Mm.
give an example of how permaculture practices can differ from region to region in the Philippines? For example, if I live in Laguna, will this be different from someone else's design and practice in Davao?
Oh yes, yes. First of all, actually, your natural resources would basically dictate how you would design your permaculture site.
Mm.
Okay, so if you have a lot of coconuts, so you maximize the use of coconuts. You make buko pa, you use coco lumber and all of those things. Use it for construction, use it for food. Now, I'm not familiar with your ecosystems there in Davao, but we've been to Zamboanga del Sur, and they have adlai over there, or Job steers,
Adlai.
that yeah, that we didn't see in other systems. So because
Mm.
they have an abundance of that, they made soap out of it. Okay, so
Oh.
that's how things vary. So like what I
Mm.
said before, you check out what you have, maximize it, okay, and integrate it into your culture. Now that one in Dumingag, Zamboanga del Sur, I think the whole town makes their own soaps already, because as part of their permaculture design, they don't just sell the soaps. People who go there, actually they teach them how to make the soap. Okay, so they're what do you call
Fair
this?
share.
Yeah, fair share. So it's a really good design. So I'm sad that I only have like 12 examples to give you, and that's been a product of 2 years of data gathering already. That's why I'm really hoping that a lot of people will get inspired to look into this, because I think right now it's really appropriate. Yeah, so that to answer the question, yes, it varies. So I'll tell you that you look outside, see what's abundant, and use it. I don't care if it's a weed, it's grass, or whatever. You use it. If it's grass or kogon or a weed, don't burn it. Just trim it, use it as mulch, and let it decompose there. Okay, so don't burn anything. So it
Okay.
depends.
So
It really depends.
Yeah. I'll
so
jump in
so
into
part.
my next
Go ahead.
question, Dax? Or do you have a follow up to that?
I have a follow up. I have another question from the audience before we proceed. Apologies for me
Okay.
looking up from time to time because I'm looking at our comment section here. And so another question from Reeve is this: does permaculture discourage, if not avoid, the cultivation of annual crops and foreign flora and fauna? The only exception I can see is vermiculture, as African night crawlers are not native to the Philippines, but they are not invasive. So I think this is more of the spirit of
Mm,
permaculture. As does it discourage growing those non-endemic? Because as you have we have
mm,
previously discussed, look around you and see what you have,
mm.
but then you want to integrate something that is foreign, or something that is not occurring naturally in that place or area. So how does the permaculture concept play into
Okay.
that?
Well, if I ask my teacher Bert about that, the first question that he will ask me is, will it make sense to you? Why do you have to do it? Right? So it must make sense. You don't just go to the store and buy everything that you want. So actually, the permaculture movement really doesn't have a exact stance on the integration of non-endemic species. If you check all the farms that you visited around the Philippines, those are not all endemic and indigenous. They have foreigners over there. But in further studies, I would like to see how this plays out in the design, how it affects local biodiversity. But that's a future research direction, because one problem is the focus is so much on diversity, and there's so much. It's like a United Nations of plant species over there. So you want to see what happens in that in those assemblies. So permaculture doesn't have as far as what I know, I don't think they have a stand on those things. So if it makes sense to you to introduce your ANCs, your non-native
African night
fruit
crawler.
trees, yeah, African night crawlers, go. But it shouldn't be your first choice. So think long and hard about it.
It's a component
Okay,
to a
so
system.
Yeah.
it's a there's a follow-up comment because cherry blossoms was an issue.
Yeah.
It's a mountain province. That's why she asked that question. Okay, so
Yeah.
another question here before. Okay, go ahead. Do you have some insights on that, on the cherry blossoms?
Yeah, the
in
cherry
mountain
blossom.
province?
Yeah, because if you can see, there's this post on Facebook circulating about the beautiful native trees of the Philippines. We have so much native trees here that can take the function of the beautiful cherry blossom. So it doesn't make sense to a lot of people to introduce an equally beautiful tree if we have existing beautiful trees here. So
Yeah.
that's the response.
Okay, so
And the next
I think
question.
Jim, you have a couple of questions, but I think we have one more from the audience. Is it necessary to certify your farm to be a model of permaculture? Is there a certification process for this?
Sorry for laughing because sorry because that's a good question. Actually, that was tackled in the last webinar. Because the speakers, when he was asked what's the difference between permaculture and organic, he said permaculture doesn't have standards in the first place, which is really true. So it doesn't have the standards. We don't even know what a permaculture farm looks like. Then we certify it, right? So
Yeah.
right now, the best way of knowing what a permaculture farm is, it's either self-declaration or you have a permaculture design certificate from a certified teacher or a graduate of a permaculture institution. But it's not the farm that you're certifying, it's yourself. So part of my study is actually proposing some standards. Actually, the model that I showed you is one of those. At least we have minimum requirements, okay, just to see if a farm meets the ethics and the principles. And then we go on from there. So hopefully there will be, because other people might say that permaculture doesn't have to be certified, but I think it has to, because you have to protect the concept. Okay, the integrity of the concept. Because if you don't do something about it, anyone can say they're practicing permaculture. Okay, so there has to be accountability.
I answered that question
Yeah.
also
The spirit
briefly
of
in the
we need to
comment
protect the spirit
section.
of it.
I answered that briefly in the
Yes, Jim
comment
answered it.
thread.
Um,
Yeah. And
if
the
I could
point that I was raising.
categorize this as brief.
Sorry, that's
okay. So Jim, can you kindly
sorry,
read
that's
your
brief.
comment?
No, but basically, I'm just saying that it's not covered by law, unlike organic agriculture, where we actually have a Republic Act putting organic agriculture as, you know, something that follows certain standards. We have government agencies that would actually oversee the certification process, or the regulation rather, of certifying bodies. So it's different when you say, if you want to say that, is there a permaculture standards or certification body? I think that's what Jabez is pointing out, that it doesn't have that yet. If you compare, or if you make organic agriculture as the basis of comparison. So those are things that, but I think I get what Jabez is saying, that the proposal from the study is also going towards that direction, that there has to be somehow a standardization, or at least minimum requirement baseline, just to say that if you practice these things, then you are already, you know, practicing the spirit of permaculture somehow.
Yeah, maybe at least at the level of the
Okay, I think
community, they have some accountability. So I don't know how yet.
Okay, so that's something for
I think we have time for two more
things to
questions.
develop into.
Okay.
I have one question. So can I jump into that one, Dax? Hello.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So I was at a recent online discussion with the United Nations Committee on World Food Security, and the chair of the high-level panel of experts stated that this is non-verbatim, but the gist of the statement was market forces driven supply chains are efficient like the just-in-time system. They're efficient, but somehow they are revealed to be not resilient, as what COVID-19 is now revealing. So towards that question, maybe, or just for the benefit of the viewers also, would you say that if permaculture practitioners or permaculture farms, are they resilient in this kinds of situation where we have this, pandemic, food or health crisis at hand? Can you say permaculture is one way for farms to be resilient?
Yes, that's one way. Hopefully, we could measure their resilience in the future. What we looked into is their food security. So, one important finding there is because most of our farmers, they don't eat what they grow because they grow like just one or two crops. But
Then they sell
in
it.
permaculture, we found out that they plant what they want to eat. Okay, so there's no disconnect between what you see and what they actually prefer to eat. Okay, so because it's designed, they're designing for themselves. So it's reading that wow, these people are actually eating or planting what they eat. So I think that's a good sign in that aspect in food security. I think they're resilient in that way. So, but but for example, in other aspects, we haven't really investigated that, like the economic aspect. What are other of it? So how much do they make from the trainings that they administer? So what are their other sideline jobs? The data that we have is that they have multiple jobs because
Sources
even
of income.
themselves, yeah, they have different sources of income. So they're just not one thing. So I think that's another aspect that's worth exploring. So I think
The
right
economic side
now,
of the
yeah,
economic
the
side of
economic
things, no?
side, yeah, that's the most important part also. Yeah.
Okay, Jim, your
Okay.
last question, bro.
I think can I jump to the resources already? Is that the
Okay.
same question that you're also going to ask, Dax?
Okay, so are there? No, go ahead, bro. Ask the question.
Okay,
Sorry.
so I think for the benefit of the viewers and everybody, I think many are interested in permaculture. A lot of people are engaged in asking the comments, and I think the best question maybe to ask towards the end also, or that could also lead to some call to action, is if I were interested in permaculture, what resources or where can I go? Is there an online community where I can learn more and develop my interest in permaculture?
Yeah. Okay. Actually, I can. Hello.
Yes,
Okay.
go ahead.
If you're interested in permaculture and learning more about it, don't come to our group. We're a research group, so you can search the Philippine Permaculture Association. That's one. I think that's the oldest group here in the Philippines. We also have one in Antique. It's called Green Warrior Permaculture. You search for that. They also have a permaculture school in Antique. And then there's also this organization called Green Relief. We also have permaculture related activities. So relief, it's spelled with RELEAF. So you can Google those organizations. Yeah, those organizations, and you can get in touch with them. And for the references, I'm circulating a Google Sheets of permaculture references. This is for students or researchers wanting to go into permaculture research or study this movement or this system. And we have lots of references there that you can cite. You can download it one by one. Some links, they only have abstracts, but you can connect to the authors if you want to request for the full text. So basically everything that we're finding out, we're releasing them publicly. We have a permaculture map of practitioners that's, we only have 12 right now, but the Philippine Permaculture Association is doing a larger scale of that map just to identify where the practitioners are in the Philippines. And then when we identify them, you can connect with these people, and these people are more than willing to help you and accommodate you grow in your permaculture journey. So because of all the people that we met in permaculture, they're really, really passionate about what they're doing. So I suggest you connect to these groups: Philippine Permaculture Association, Green Warrior Permaculture, and Green Relief.
I shared
At
one
least,
group, which is the
yeah,
Philippine Permaculture Practitioners. Is that
yeah,
also a community where people
yeah,
can
yeah.
learn?
You can go to that group also,
Yeah, that's the
and
one down there.
yeah, yeah. There are other groups for sure. Sorry if I missed it, but there are a lot. And even the permaculture movement itself in the Philippines is not yet that well connected. So I hope everyone else would reach out to each other and help one another in this time of crisis.
Great.
And wait,
Okay, so I
not
think
just
that's
Yes.
permaculture groups, connect to other movements as well. Yeah. So like the organic movement, natural farming movement, every other movement that there is relating to food production.
Community
I hope
supported
everyone
agriculture.
would work together. Yeah.
okay. So I think that's it for our open forum. We want to
Thanks.
thank Jabez, of course, for sharing his knowledge and insight, about his research in permaculture. So before we go, before we wrap this webinar up, we have a tradition here in Dream Agritech and Dream AgriMedia, where we shout outs to people who we want to thank and we want to greet while we have the platform. So while we do that, we will also be flashing the evaluation form link, which is here below. Okay, please check that out. dreamagritech.com/perma-eval. dreamagritech.com/perma-eval. So please do fill that form, and so that we can give you your e-certificates. Again, we want to clarify that if you fail, or if you were not able to answer this evaluation in the interest of fairness, we will not give you certificates for this particular webinar. So the webinar, the deadline is once again up until May 20, 12 noon. Once again, I will flash the link, dreamagritech.com/perma-eval. And while we do our greetings, this link will be flashed. So please do take note of this link. We'll start with, of course, our guest, Jabez. Jabez, if there's anybody you want to greet or you want to thank, please do so.
Okay, I would like to. First of all, I would like to thank my school, UPLB, for allowing me to conduct this research in the first place, especially to SESAM, the graduate school, DOST, and CIRCA for believing in me. It's a weird study so far, so I'm just happy that research institutions have supported the study. I would like to give a shout out also to my advisory committee and my friends, my family, my wife, and to Dream Agritech also for supporting me. And also to my research team, Permaculture Research
Of
PH.
course. Woo-hoo.
Yes. Thank you for helping me gather all of this data for the past, I don't know, 2 to 3 years. It's a long time. Your help is really, I hope you can celebrate soon. Thank you.
After lockdown.
Yes.
Okay, Jim.
Okay, so shout out again to
Anything to
my
plug? Or
constant
yeah, plug
supporters.
or shout out? Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll shout out and then I'll plug. So hi to my parents who
Okay,
are
go ahead.
watching from Cebu, and Jewel, my girlfriend, who tuned in also to the webinar. Um, so everybody else who was also from my friends list who got interested, who jumped into the show. Hi everybody, and thanks for being engaged. Thank you for supporting Dream Agritech's Agri 2020 webinar series. Before I forget, I'll say again that we have an upcoming web discussion with Dream Agritech and White Part Philippines partnership. This is the possible youth in agriculture dynamics post COVID 19. This will be at 9 p.m. Philippine time. We've shared a link to the event on the comment thread. You can find it there. This is free, of course, and we've deliberately set it at 9 p.m. so we can accommodate our friends from other countries. We have guests from Rome, France, and Trinidad and Tobago from the Caribbean islands, Yemi, Marina, and Alpha. So please join us and learn about how we can engage young people towards agriculture post COVID 19. Go,
Thanks,
Dax.
Jim. And I will now wrap it up with my own plug. Actually, it's our show also. Mga lingkod bayan sa agrikultura of Batangas will be featured in the next Agricaba show. Also, Agricaba, for those who aren't familiar, is just a web show where we discuss and bring to the forefront the stories of the people in the field of agriculture. Like Jim likes to say, the agricultural actors behind the scenes. We bring their stories to the forefront, and I think Kuya Jim has also touched upon this that we are doing this to bring the stories of the people from the fields onto a greater audience, onto a bigger platform, and that is what Dream Agritech and Dream AgriMedia is trying to do. So please do stay tuned for that Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. We will also be a giveaway. So please do tune in at this time. We have incredible guests for this show. So please do look out and stay alert for that one. Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. here on Dream Agritech's page and on our YouTube page as well. So I would just like to greet once again my friends who are always watching, who is always supporting this endeavor of Dream Agritech. Thank you so much. I'd like to greet my girlfriend Ren, who's watching right now. Please stay safe. And to everybody who has attended our previous webinars and up to today, we thank you so much for your support of Dream Agritech and Dream AgriMedia. So, guys, are we okay? We're good. In behalf of
Thank you.
Jabez, in behalf of Jim, this has been Agri 2020 New Perspectives in Agriculture. We want to thank you. Before I forget, I almost forgot. Next week's topic will be social media for agriculture. So please do join that webinar. That will be conducted by our very own Jim Cano and Justin Interno. So please do stay tuned for that one. So, Jim, can you give them a bit of a preview of what they can expect? Maybe just a brief teaser of
Teaser.
yeah, tease them.
Well, basically, we have a lot of social media platforms, and it can be confusing sometimes which one to maximize if you want to use it for agriculture. Here in this webinar, in this upcoming webinar, we want to show how you can streamline your efforts so that you're not spread out too thin, so that all of the things that you're doing is correlated and is also working together, and so that you're not wasting your efforts and your time or your resources whatsoever. So tune into that one and learn more about how we can efficiently maximize social media for agriculture communication.
All right, thanks, Jim. So please do stay tuned. Stay same time, same day, Monday at 3 p.m. Social media for agriculture is the next one in the series of webinars that we call Agriculture 2020. So in behalf once again of Jim, Cano, and James Flores, my name is Dax Alfindo. We hope to see you on our channels, and we hope to see you at the next webinar. So thank you so much, and
Thank
have a
you.
great day,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.